Well,
multitasking.
there you go. Get your workout.
All right, guys, you want to get started?
Yeah, let's jump right in and get this thing
so
going.
tonight I am so excited to introduce you to Scott Donnell. We met at a speakers convention type of event, and just a phenomenal guy. And like I just mentioned before, I pretty much describe him, and I'll let him get into all that after I talk really highly about him. He's about to change the world in a way that, like, when I was a kid, I wish I had something like that. You know what he has created and been a part of, and his heart's in the right place. He's Christ-centered. He's just a real deal. So he owns a business called Gravystack, and essentially he's teaching financial literacy. He's an expert in that when it comes to children. And he's gamified this Gravystack in a way that, I mean, pretty much also like saves money for the parents, but also teaches the kids essentially the value of money and savings and investing, everything that's in that. And I'll let him get into all of that. Best-selling author, top 1% podcast. The dude was just on stage with Tony Robbins at his event. I mean, dude. And then he just let us know that that he just started another business called dinnertable.com. I mean, I could go on and on about this guy. I'm going to let him speak about what it is he does, but I'm excited about tonight, and I hope you guys are too.
Yeah, we're super excited to have Scott with us. I'm going to change up my view here, but yeah, this is going to be good because I'm very excited to hear this story too of how all of this came to be. So the kind of theme, you guys who have tuned into different ones of these workshops, it's been turning your pain to purpose. And so we're kind of going to take that in a little bit different direction tonight and talking about kids and about financial literacy and about the pain points that come with being financially illiterate when you're kids, and what that, you know, how that translates into our adulthood, and how it came about that Scott came up with these solutions, and just a little bit of his story with this. So without further ado, please join us in welcoming Scott Donnell.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, this is an honor to be here, and can't wait to be with you guys in person here in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
It's going to be so much fun. I'll save some of the juicy stuff for live in person, but yeah, it's been an incredible road. I started a bunch of businesses to help families and kids, just because that's just our passion. And really how it started was my wife, Amy, my angel. We got 4 little kiddos at home. If you hear kids screaming out there, that's what it is. It's our busy home. We just got back, by the way, because I know you guys are stuck in travel. We just got back from 3.5 weeks of a bunch of travel. We just crossed the border from Mexico, just got home like a couple hours ago. So I'm glad we made it. But all this started because my first company I created about 15 years ago to help Amy's first grade classroom. She was a teacher, elementary school teacher. She spent her whole paycheck on her students. I don't know if anybody knows teachers in the room. They're a bunch of angels, and they make no money, and they spend what they have on their students. And it's just, I said, okay, well, this stops here. So I started my first company. It was called Apex, and it became very quickly. We did fun runs at the school. We raised money for the school. The teachers got a budget after they raised the money to cover all the things they needed. We taught leadership and fitness and fruits of the spirit in public school. It was awesome, super fun. And the business win was it raised about 2 or 3 times as much money for the school as they'd ever made before. And so they fell in love with it. Everybody rebooked every year, and it just exploded. So we went from, all the prizes and t-shirts in our garage to fast forward. It was in 3 states, and then 9 states, and then 14 states, and then 29 states, and then 36. And now we're in 47 states. So it just exploded nationwide. We started franchising it. We built tech around it. We really learned culture and teams, and it was such a fun business. Every single day across America, We were running 1,000 miles with children. Think about that. I don't know if you even know that side of my life. But we've run to the moon and back over 100 times with our students. So we've just really fun. Really, I mean, every day someone was getting a pie in the face. Like it was a blast, right? We grew it into a top 100 franchise in the world. And we just exited that company a couple of years ago. I was never going to sell it, but we got an offer we couldn't refuse. And my investors were like, please. So we said no, actually. Believe it or not, someone offered us 24 times earnings for the business. And I walked away just because purpose matters more. But here's what happened. So the moment we started Apex, I started to realize that it wasn't the teacher's fault, but these kids were not being prepared for real life stuff like financial skills, practical skills, critical thinking skills. I mean, I just spoke at an event, not the Tony Robbins event. I'll talk about that later, but another event, Aspire, 2,500 entrepreneurs in the audience. And I just said, raise your hand if you were taught financial skills growing up, like adequate, well prepared. 0 hands. And so we've got a problem because maybe 30, 40 years ago, your parents mostly agreed, like, yep, kids should have hard work. Yep, they should earn things. Yep, they got to do this, that, and the other to be able to learn and grow. Nowadays, kids are day trading entitlement and victimhood is what we're seeing. They don't learn to earn. They don't learn to create value. And so it really set me on a path many, many years ago to try to crack this nut because it's not being taught anywhere. And then everyone gets mad at schools. They're like, why aren't they learning the right stuff? How does whatever it is, algebra, how does that help me with taxes?
Doesn't.
How does geometry help me with monthly budgeting, right? And so that's really what we did is we just dove in, and we've helped over 7 million families in total with our companies. So we've had so many iterations of learning what works, what doesn't work, how do you do this right? And so it really led us into and seeing the pain of really the families, like they're just like, our kids are getting into the real world. We barely scraped by to get them there. We had no idea how to teach them anything. We fight over allowance, which, by the way, guys, allowance is socialism. But 80% of Americans give it to their kids. So your kids don't need to learn how to spend your money. That doesn't work. And then they fight over chores, and the best parents do is they're like, we'll try a lemonade stand, give them allowance, and get them a bank account when they hit puberty. Like, that's it. That's it. And even there's other companies out there that do, bank accounts for kids, but it doesn't actually solve any of the problems either, because again, it's just putting money on a card for kids to go spend. And you can't homework money. You got to do it in the real world. And so that's really what led us to Gravystack. So Gravystack it's the world's first bank that plays like a game. And kids join, parents give them gigs, and they learn how to cover their own expenses in the home. And I think one of the biggest things we see is parents usually think that to be a good parent, I have to give all my kids, provide everything for them, not let them go through struggles of their own. Like, I don't want them to go through all the things I had to go through coming up, or I just want to give them every opportunity I never had. Well, that's out of love, but the problem is it's disastrous if it's not done right. And so what we wrote was the book was Value Creation Kid: The Healthy Struggles Your Children Need to Succeed. And I think the secret here, Micah and Diana, the secret of this is that I think parents are getting almost twice as much out of this than the kids so far. As we're going down this journey, I found that when you become an adult, you don't actually raise your hand and say, I don't understand this. People just they're quiet about it. And so they never truly learn investing. They never truly learn borrowing, the issues of borrowing, the potential benefits. They never learn hey, spend less than you make. like actually true budgeting, true earning and creating value. They just didn't learn it. And so they don't ask the questions when they're older because they don't want to look dumb. And then and you're not dumb, you're just like everybody else. You were never taught. And then when they have kids, they don't even want to talk about it either because they're not qualified and they have no idea how to teach the kids. So now this cycle just continues. You see the pain point we're seeing here? And so it's this crazy game that we're solving here. And so here are a couple of things that I've learned. And then I think we should just go quickly into some Q&A because I think there's a lot of discussion we should do around this. And we can save more of the presentation deep dive stuff for being live. But so one of the biggest things we've learned is we did a survey on thousands of children and parents when we started Gravystack. We found that 90% of children actually have a negative view of money. And they won't say it. They don't say it out loud. So you're like, hey, what do you think about money? They're like, I don't like it. But through the surveys and the questions and the interviews, we found that money was the biggest fight in home that the kids saw. So intimacy and money, two biggest fights in the home, two biggest things that cause divorce, two biggest sources of conflict in the house. Well, the kids don't see the first one. That's in the bedroom. But everywhere they see money. We can't afford this. You know how much this costs? Money doesn't grow on trees. Do you know how hard I worked to get you guys this and you just took it for granted or you blew it? They hear that over and over and over. Parents argue over the bills. They argue over travel for work. They are, you're late for home and there's nagging and there's things that happen when people are busy and stressed, especially raising children. Because when you're raising children, you're already like busy and stressed and tired. So there's just a lot of those pain points that no one knows how to talk about. So if kids don't want to talk about money because it's a big fight in the home and no one's teaching them money at school and parents have no roadmap, and don't get me started on banks because banks want you to be dumb with money. That is how they make theirs. They don't even care about kids until they have a bunch of money for deposits. In fact, the only way they care about kids is if they can get them a credit card at 18 to go into debt immediately, because that their 24% is how they make a lot of money. So you see the war going on? The war is actually on entitlement, because entitled victim kids actually grow into entitled victim adults that when they fail, which they inevitably will, we all do, instead of taking personal responsibility to grow, they blame their parents, which causes rifts in families. They blame their employer, which causes turnover and causes the average 26-year-old having, I think it's 9 jobs now. And then they blame the government. It's because everybody blames the government when they don't take personal responsibility, ultimately. And we need to train the next generation that personal responsibility is the way to go. Like, it does not help you to blame others and be a victim. It just doesn't. And so that's really what Gravystack exists to do. We teach kids to create value. We teach them to earn. We teach them to cover their own expenses and budget and plan. And it's all intrinsically motivated. So it's a real debit card and a real bank account. And they're off and running. I'm about to launch into a 100-day journey with my daughter. We're going to do 100 gigs in 100 days. And she's going to earn every single day doing something new, a new capability, a new skill, brain gigs, action gigs, challenges that help around our house. And by the end of she's 7 years old. And if a 7-year-old can do it, anybody can do it. So that's what we're about to launch. We'll film the whole thing and show the whole world. It's going to be epic. She's going to be planning the next family trip on a budget. She's going to be canceling subscriptions. She's going to be getting coupons. She's like, all these things that people are like, oh yeah, I can't believe my kids never did that. Listen, if you're a parent, your kids will never do that until you train them to do that. And then guess what? You're free for the rest of your life from ever doing that. So many parents just do everything. And then they get more exhausted and more tired, and their kids delay their growth. So yeah, All right, let's jump into Q&A because I could
So,
go.
so real quick, Scott, I don't know if you have a microphone in front of you, but you need to drop it because the truth that you just did, like, I love raw truth. I love passion truth. We do that in our space, and it's hard to hear sometimes, but it's the reality. You talked about intimacy and money and divorce. That matters a lot to us, and making sure. And we see so many families, just our one-on-one job, seeing so many people just struggling through those two things. I don't need the stats. I've seen it just within our gyms on how much, difficulty people have with those two things. And then I think just going straight to the point of, like, they can't teach something that they don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But they can't share that they don't know, because then they're embarrassed. I mean, that's truth.
Yeah, that's and I'll just say, like, even since we met you back this summer and we learned about Gravystack and what you were doing, I was like, that is crazy, because yeah, like, beyond here's how you open a bank account and you got to, put some money in to save it. We didn't learn anything about money, or I mean, and it's like, wow, like, how. But now that you even said that, I hadn't even thought that past. It's not even like, well, why didn't my parents teach me more? If they
Yeah.
didn't know, then they can't teach you. So it's like, wow, that. And I even think, fast forward, as this movement grows of, like, educating the kids more, the ripple effects, like you said, that will have, just even in families. And yeah, I mean, I would bet money is probably the number one. Is it number one or number two reason for divorce?
If it's not number one, it's secretly number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me show you nothing. So one thing we teach, and hey, Marcus, I just saw you. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Valius, one of my favorite humans on planet Earth. So one thing we do in Dinner Table, right? Dinner Table is our courses and workshops on family legacy and training all these things. Now we're licensing family financial coaches all over the world on how to train our content to their audience and clients and whatnot. One of the biggest things that we've found that we train on is, I've never met anybody who trains people on money trauma from childhood. But what I've seen now with millions of families that we've gone through this with is, what you don't heal from, you pass on. And money is one of the, it's like this, like, secret giant, because people talk about trauma and addiction and abuse and neglect, or a death in the family or divorce or these kinds of things. Nobody ever talks about money. But almost every entrepreneur I've met has a wound around money and the way they were treated when they were young. The way most parents I've met have never even thought about how their parents dealt with money, about how they were either, frugal. You can be generous, you can be frugal, you can be miserly, you could be stingy, you could be dollar to dollar living. You could be, oh, we got to spend this today on fun because I'm buying my kids love. Okay. If you grew up in a divorced home, there's so much that can happen in a co-parenting situation. What no one ever talks about is the bribery game. Go to mom, buys you stuff because it wants to be better than dad. You go to dad, he's buying your love and coercing you with as much stuff and fun as possible, and it just goes up and up and up and up and up. These are secondary like issues that come from what we think is, an immediate break in the family, but money always jumps in. That's why I said, if it ain't number one, it's secretly number one. Because this happens all the time. A busy parent that's traveling a lot, that feels guilty for not being around as much, immediately goes to money and stuff. And that breeds more entitlement. Parents that are living paycheck to paycheck are systematically teaching their kids poverty mindset as well. They're systematically showing them, like, money's here today, gone tomorrow. It's the scarcity mindset, not abundance. There isn't enough for others. The pie cannot get bigger. You need to live with closed hand, not open fist, or open palm. Right? I believe that we need to live like this rather than like this around money, because A generous, open hand does believe that there's more to come, does believe that God can bless more. How's God going to fill a hand that's like this? It's like, nope, fill it. Let's go. That's true generosity. A truly generous person has the ability and the mindset that more and more value can be created in every single situation for the rest of my life. And that's perhaps the number one thing kids need to hear. So if you're going to rank our 7 money skills, and we train all this in our courses and stuff, you have earn, save, spend, share, invest, protect, borrow. Everyone always asks me, what's the number one? Like, what's the best one? And they always argue over it all the time. It's actually a really thoughtful conversation to have. What is the best one? It's got to be earned, because you can't do anything unless you've earned it. And how do you earn? You create value. It's got to be investing, because investing is like the pinnacle of all this. Compounding interest, the 8th wonder of the world. No, it's got to be saving. You don't save any, spend less than you make. Hands down, the number one money skill is share. Hands down. Share encompasses all the others wrapped into a pretty bow, because a kid who shares believes that tomorrow will be better than today, which then impacts mindset, mental health, value creation, family dynamics, friendships, future opportunities. It immediately impacts all the rest. Share, be generous, give. And by the way, children do not think about the word give or donate or 501c3 or generosity or philanthropy. We say the word share because the first thing a child does is share a toy. They give a pencil. They share their lunch. They're sharing first. You have to think about it differently with kids. Each of these money skills has 4 stages to them that we train on. And so much of this, parents are like, oh, duh, I totally didn't think about it that way. I'm trying to get my kid on Robinhood and try to teach him the investing side when we haven't even stepped back and talked through like delayed gratification. What's compounding interest? What's risk and reward? Like, what is Millionaire Mountain? Like, all these things have stages to them. Sorry, I'm going on a rant here, but
So good.
This is my life. Man. It's what you do not heal from, you pass on.
Yeah, it's like everything you're saying is like it's so much more, it's so much deeper than just like, hey, let's teach kids about money. Like there's just really deep roots and there's deep roots and I think big ripples to this. So that's really powerful. I'm gonna put this other view on here, and I know probably Marcus is gonna want to chime in. I want Jessa to give her some insight on, she's a psychoanalyst, so and I know she works with kids, and I would love to hear some of what she says about what you said about the trauma around money with kids. So
if you guys have any questions, just put your hand up.
Put your hands up, and let's get some conversation going. This is just like, it's like I'm sitting here and you're talking, I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's true too. It's things you don't even think about. Chatty, go ahead, Chatty.
Hey, Chad.
Good evening. Hey, so I think this is really important to talk about. I won't try to go off into the weeds too much, but one thing a lot of people don't realize is that the reason why we don't talk about money that much is because of what the Rockefellers did over 100 years ago. So they pumped in about $120 million into our school system for a bunch of worker bees. And so what that did was it created a mindset of worker bees, which there's nothing wrong with that. We have to have that. But it has limited people to be entrepreneur minded, and to be able to think outside, like, hey, I'm just working for X amount of dollars per hour.
Yeah.
And so here we are 100 plus years later, and it's the same archaic system. I mean, obviously it goes with our, what we have or haven't learned from our parents, our grandparents, what we've taken upon ourselves. But that is a mindset that has come to America. And that's a huge reason why we are where we are.
Yeah. Hands down, man. I have so much I could say, but a couple things here. I don't know if you guys know this, but in 1917, when the public school system was created, do you know what the Latin root was of this, of the law, the regulatory law that was passed around public school? It was politicus locatus. In place, it translates to mean this: in place of parents. And so when it was launched, it was a system of assembly line, industrial age, parents are working, mostly, sometimes a lot of two parents. We got to help, we got to do something for the children. But it launched already with an agenda. And the agenda was, we need to be in place of parents. If we can remove education from the home. Before 1917, education was home first, and then everything else supplemented. Today, it's let's outsource our parenting as many places as possible and hope for the best. That's what it's become. So we outsource our parenting to school, hoping they get all the education. We outsource our parenting to church, hoping they learn faith. We outsource it to sports, hoping they learn discipline and leadership. We outsource it to all these camps, like just outsource, get them out of the home, get them doing. I'm not saying we shouldn't have our kids out in the world doing things. What I'm saying is you should outsource business stuff that's not your unique ability or your genius, but you can't outsource parenting. Parenting is one of the only things in the world that happens around the dinner table, not the desk. And so, what I've seen is so many parents, they just, it's like a mix of keeping up with the Joneses versus getting a resume for their kids as early as possible, and they just dish them out. And they're not actually taking responsibility. But when they go to school, Chad, guess what they're getting in school? There's only one right answer, Chad.
Right.
Don't talk back or ask questions, Chad. Don't work in groups, Chad. Like, take this test, regurgitate the information that I'm telling you, Chad. Like, don't think outside the box, because then I won't be able to pass the Common Core test as the teacher and be able to get paid, right? That's what the education system breeds. And half of the jobs that we have today will not be here in a decade. But there will be 10 times as many opportunities in a decade. What we need to be doing is teaching critical thinking, innovation, value creation, practical skills, financial skills, mindset. Like, that's the stuff that kids need to learn if they want to be successful, instead of trying to get them through school to get the grades, to get into the college, to get the degree for the job that's not going to be there anymore, most likely, right? Skills should trump degrees, in my opinion. In fact, we should stop asking children what they want to be when they grow up. This is a big mistake. We ask children, and like most children, I'm talking literally 14 and under, they don't even know any jobs. And so what they'll tell you is, I either want to be a famous online person, social media influencer, that's what 3/4 of them want, or a fireman or astronaut, or whatever my parents are. Like, that's you. We do it at Apex all the time. We used to ask that to millions of kids, and that's what we'd get. So they don't even know what all the opportunities could be. What we should be asking children is, what lights you up? Skill sets. What gives you flow time? What gives you fire? Like, what could you do for 8 hours straight that is of value to someone else? And you don't even like need to eat or pee or anything. Like, you just love it, right? Because that's your sweet spot. Something you love, that you're good at, that meets a big need in the world. That we call that the sweet spot. And so if we focus on that with our kids, and we develop skill sets and mindsets with strong values and strong faith, Gravystack, everyone's like, Gravystack's incredible. It is, but it's only a tool. And your kids and your family, your marriage, your relatives, you need 4 things. You need tools, mindsets, skill sets, and values. You get those wrapped together, you got a legacy in the making. But parents are just not thinking that way. So yeah, I love your comment, man.
Thank you, Chad.
You just real quick, I know we got to keep going, but just, you think about the amount of kids that turned into adults that live this life, that are maybe towards the end or have left, that are not here anymore. But because of the way things have been, they didn't dare try, because it wasn't even in their mindset or even a possibility, because it wasn't talked about. Go to work for this company, go to college, boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Chad. Thank you for sharing. Great question. Marcus, what you got?
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Marcus.
I just wanted to show up to show some love and support, brother. You're doing an amazing thing. And for anybody else who is just meeting Scott for the first time, this man is as amazing as you are hearing from this guy. I love this human being and really excited to see you in a couple weeks, man.
Absolutely. Same here, my friend.
That was my question. There you go.
That was my question.
Love you guys.
I love it.
Yeah, just wanted
Marcus
to-
is a legacy family. One of my favorite things about him. We have this private group of Christian entrepreneurs that are all focused on legacy. How do you get every generation to blow by the previous in faith, values, skills, traits, financial competency, impact in the world? If you know, and I've been trying to find the best in the world for a decade, the best 100 families. And the moment I met Marcus, I was like, this man's a legacy man. He's planning it out right. And so huge respect, man. I can't wait to see you.
Yeah, bro. Hey, one thing you said, by the way, I just want to encourage you with, when you talked about how it really like triggered me in a really like positive and impressive way. When you talked about how much damage is done because of financial talk and just what we witness, I think that's a real hot button that I've never actually heard anyone say, but I think it's massive. Like I want to say maybe 100% of human beings are going to go, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I've found in speaking circles, when you find something like that, it's like, oh, that's your place.
Thank you.
That money messed me up more than anything else. Like I've got a messed up story. I've got weird crap that happened to me, but money and what I witnessed messed me up. I'm fortunate enough, it messed me up so much that I was like, oh, I can't have this happen to my kids or anybody else. So that I did everything to make it go the other way. But man, it messes people up. Like that's real trauma.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for saying that. Cause I need world-class people to tell me what those like hot buttons are when I just talk. Cause I've got 300 pages of notes and I just say some of them sometimes. So the fact that you said that means a lot. One of our family legacy strategies, which you'll get soon, is the breakthroughs, the money breakthroughs. It's one of our 18 core family legacy strategies. So we'll talk about that much deeper and unpack it as a family and how we can pass on the right things and not the wrong things. So thanks for saying that, man. I'll use that more on stages and socials.
I'm looking forward to hearing that. And just one last encouragement. After you drop a few of these bombs, give some dead space. Let people digest it. When you drop it and you're like, oh, frick, he is so right. Just let us digest it for a second and then you hammer him again. And it's like, oh, this guy is on point. Love you,
Okay.
Love you, Micah and Diana. God bless you all. I hope to see you guys in a few weeks.
Yeah, see you soon, my friend.
Love you, buddy.
Weeks.
Can't wait to see you.
Jessa, I want you to chime in on this. So Scott, Jessa's going to actually be at the conference too. She's helping with like, just to have a mental health team there for people that might, this conference kind of brings stuff up for them. But I would love
Beautiful.
to hear her thoughts on that trauma piece too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to share. Not necessarily a question, but more conversation around these pieces, because I do value and think it's so important and appreciate all that you're bringing in and the different levels to hit on, like working with parents, working with businesses, working with like a social, a cultural, working with kids, to hit so many levels. And to share what I see in the consulting room with patients. Money is a huge issue. It's there and it's floating around a lot of implicit messages that they receive from parents, from family, from even like generational trauma. that even if it's not trauma, it still has an impact on them in some way. And where I see it'll show up is like when I raise my fee, patients get uncomfortable. They have thoughts and feelings about it, and that's where their own stuff will show up. That then, and I'll even make the statement similar to what you said, is that it's harder to talk. It's easier to talk about sex than it is to talk about money. Like my patients, it's hard to talk about sex, but they will share easier about that than they will talk about money. That is very, very hard to. And then I also do business consulting with therapists, helping them work around their money mindsets and where they're stuck and what's difficult about raising their own fees or keeping to their own policies and procedures. And that there is so much implicit that's embedded that I'll ask questions of like, what's your first memory about money in your family? And share their different memories to figure out what are those places that are going on implicitly that I find fascinating, bringing to the table, have conversation, but like 100% of the time they're anxious. They don't want to talk about it. They try to avoid it or squirm away from it. And so
Yeah.
just to share a little bit of my insights and bringing in conversation, and then also a lot of appreciation to have this conversation here, to make it comfortable, that it can
Yeah.
be explicit and that there's no shame and no guilt, and it can, for us to each just work through our own pieces.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. And you brought up a lot of things for me to think through as well. So I'm looking forward to talking to you more at the event. But one thing that we're training families on is how to make money part of everyday conversation, healthy money conversations in the home. So many times parents don't even think about that. They don't ask money. We have over 100 dinner conversation starters around money. Starting with, hey, what is money? Right? Is money good? Is money bad? Right? Having these conversations, and we give them tidbits of information with them to talk to their kids about, but it's really about making it just normal, making it a positive thing rather than a triggering thing, a negative thing, right? It's one thing for the kids to just be worried about money. They don't want to talk about it because it's the fights in the home. But there's even a further step. Kids actually don't want to deal with the money side because it's adulting. It's like, it's hard to make money at times if you don't know like what you can do or what you want to do or to ask for the sale or these. It's hard to make money. It's not easy, right? If it was easy, everybody would be crazy rich. But you've got to be trained in it. It has to be part of your life. It has to be a thoughtful process. It has to be, money is not good or bad, right? Money is a tool. Money is a store of value, which is why we wrote our book, Value Creation Kid, the healthy struggles your children need to succeed. It's actually much more of a psychology book than it's got a ton of practical stuff, but it's so much more about psychology around this. It's a store of value. That's what money is at the end of the day. And kids don't see that. They don't realize that. And when parents jump just to money, it can become identity. You also don't want your family's identity to be all money. That's a keeping up with the Joneses issue. That actually can cause unlimited harm if a child is tying identity to money. But another way to cause unlimited harm is to have children detach from money completely, right? And then they're using victimhood and entitlement and anxiousness, self-doubt, spoiling. All these things are when they're detached from the right views of money. And so there's a balance here that families need to walk. And so it's so much more about having it be a normal, everyday conversation. Do your children, if you have children here or anyone listening, do your children know the last investment you made? Do they know why you made it? Do they know how it's going to cause a return and how it's going to help create value for others? Every time you give, do you talk to your children or teenagers about it? Even your adult children, if you're older. Bring them in on these conversations so you can all learn together. Do they know what you do for work? Do they truly know how you add value for other people? Here's a great tip for anyone who travels. Every time I travel, our family sits down. Instead of me just leaving and saying, hey, I'll bribe you with something cool when I get back. Sorry. You know, that's what most people do. How about you sit down with your kids before you leave? You say, here's where daddy's going. Here's where mommy's going. I'm going to go serve these people. And I want you guys praying for me. We're going to be checking in. I'm going to let you know how it goes. But we're going to go help and serve these families and impact them and these customers or this audience or whatever it is for your work trip. And let them be in on it with you. It's a team, right? And when I get back, I can't wait to tell you about it. And we're going to cook. We're going to do these fun things. We're going to do this together. Experiences right when I get back, and I can't wait. Children who see their parents traveling a lot, who don't have these conversations, they actually think that you're going off to do something more important than them. And that causes issues. So having these just simple conversations really keeps you as a team. And as I'm talking, I have 4 children running around screaming. I don't know if you guys heard that, but I can hear they're all running. They're doing laps on their scooters. I can hear it right now.
Get that cardio in.
That's right.
Oh wow. I mean, it's just such good stuff
Yes.
that I feel like just so many like families don't talk about. And even something that Jess said there is around just if there's even shame from like the parent side, like this, you know, we deflect things that we feel uncomfortable about. And it's so if they don't know it, you know, it's like we try to protect ourselves by, you know, just not dealing with things too sometimes. So just, man, there's just so many interesting components to this.
There's yeah, oh man, there's so many things here that, and I have to say this too. It does not matter if you have newborn children, teenagers, adult children or grandchildren, or no children. Everybody has kids in their life somewhere. They have nieces, they have nephews, they have their friends' kids. If I want us to be thinking much larger about this conversation. In fact, I've probably had, because my kids are young. I have 4 kids young, 7, 5, 3, and newborn. But I mentor, you know, we've served 7 million families. I have young people come to my house every month, and we sit around the fire till midnight, young adults, because their parents know whatever Scott says, it hits deeper than if the parent could even say it themselves. One of our family legacy strategies that we train in dinner table now is you need trusted advisors and mentors for your kids that can reinforce what you care about most. Every kid needs that as they grow up, as they get through teenager, college, and young adult years. You've got to have that like trusted third party that's like, yep, whatever is coming out of their mouth to my kid's going to hear it way deeper than me saying it. And it's going to reinforce what I care about most. That's the true hack right there. My parents systematically had like 3 people that were my mentors and coaches and like youth pastor. Again, they were checking in. I didn't even know this until decades later. They were checking in, they were talking to them, and it really set me up for success. And so even if you have no kids at home, or you have no kids yet, or you don't have kids at all, there are kids in your life that you can do this with. In fact, Gravystack next month, February, I think it's like 15th, is our public launch. Because right now we're in beta. We have thousands and thousands of families doing all the gigs and learning all the skills and the real bank account, and they're just thriving. But in mid-February is the real launch to the whole world. And it's going to be free to download. You pay us as you go, like $1 on payday for paying your kids. And we're adding in the circle. The circle are those trusted people, grandparents, aunts, uncles, your friends, and they're giving gigs to the kids, which is a way for them to speak into the child's life and give them missions and challenges and things to do to earn some extra money to learn valuable skills and capabilities. And it's all simple. Download for free, jump in, and start giving gigs to kids in your life, even if they're not your own, right? That is going to be, mark my words, the #1 greatest feature of our app by far. Because I'm already seeing it happen with hundreds of families. The grandparents are like, hey, I want to pay them to watch this TED Talk and have a conversation with me about. I want to pay them to read this book. I want to pay them to eat no sugar for a week. I want them to do no screen time for like 10 days. And there's a payday at the end of it because the kids are still creating value, right? And then you get to have incredible conversations and mentorship along with it. So it's incredible for financial literacy, but it's also incredible for relationship building. And by the way, not everything's paid. Okay. That's a big question people always ask. We have 3 E's. If you want to train your kids at home, you follow these 3 E's. You don't do allowance, that's socialism. You don't do nothing with money because then you're paying for everything and it's like, my kids are the good kids that do all the chores like I tell them to. You got to have money involved or else you're paying for everything and they're learning nothing about financial competency. So follow the 3 E's and we'll unpack this way more, guys. Don't worry, in a couple of weeks. Expectations, expenses, extra pay. Expectations are free. That's your role in the home. You do not get paid for these things. But then expenses, kids are never going to want to earn unless they have expenses to pay for. It's the biggest miss of all parents. Hand off expenses in the home to the kids. We have 12 of them by age. By the time they get their driver's license, they are fully autonomous in these 12 categories. And they're making $500 or $1,000 a month in the home, outside the home, community gigs. They're independent on that. Okay. Or they're self-sufficient. I actually don't like the word independent. I'll tell you later why. But expenses is the second E. The third E is extra pay opportunities. Those are the gigs, right? So that's the paid things they can do to create value all around the home, all the challenges that they get to learn the skills, all the things in the neighborhood they can do to earn funds to go through our 4 stages of earning. You do those 3 things, your kids they have an unfair advantage against all their peers forever. Like you will not worry, and neither will they, about their future at all. So the 3E system it's called the home economy system. So we will unpack that way more in person. But yeah, I hope that helps answer.
Love that.
Scott, can you give, I remember you, when we were together, you gave kind of an example of what a gig looked like in the home, just to give the parents kind of an opportunity. I think the gig that you had told us about was a coupon base so that they could actually save some money for their parents. But yeah, so could you wrap one of those out just a little bit for us?
Yeah, so the gigs are not chores. Okay, people think of chores. Well, chores is an immediate conflict. It's a fight in the home. Kids are like, more homework. So what you do is you'd never say chores again. What you want to move to is gigs, and gigs are actually very different. Gigs are things that kids can do to create value around the home and in the community. And we have action gigs and brain gigs, as well as community gigs, which are the ones outside the home. Action gigs are hands and feet gigs. You know, sweep the garage, make a meal, clean a bathroom, yard work, wash the windows, take care of the pool. A lot of those things that you'd think of as chores, but now that you've turned them into a gig system with expenses that they're in charge of, they do about, what we're seeing is they're doing about 3 times as many things around the house to help you as they were before. And no more arguments, no more conflict. Huge pain point solved. And then we have brain gigs. Brain gigs is where they use their brain because kids need to learn how to use their brain to create value. Almost everyone on this call, our brain is our business. Why are we not teaching children that? Why are we just forcing them to do all their homework and that's the only way they're using their brain? Homework is an expectation. That's a free thing. That's your role in the family. You get your homework done first when you get home or before before dinner or whatever. Homework is an expectation, but kids need to learn how to use their brain to create value. Podcasts, books, articles, TED Talks, no sugar for a week, all the things I mentioned. Those are brain gigs. And then we've created suggested missions and brain gigs for kids in there. And it's a whole host of really brilliant things. So one of them that you mentioned was the coupon hunt. So kids are we teach them 4 ways in the app to find coupons for the grocery run for mom and dad. And so the kids love it because they're actually earning money by doing it to help mom and dad. And mom and dad are saving on average about 26% on the grocery bill. So Gravystack, the secret benefit of Gravystack is that mom and dad are literally saving thousands of dollars in the first couple months of doing it, with subscription hunts and the kids plan the next family trip on a budget. All these things, there's 100 of them. And so there's ways to save for the family, and there's ways to earn, in the home by creating value, but also extra money from the community, neighborhood, helping. We have 135 things they can do in the neighborhood to make $1,000 on a Saturday. Last tip, and we can probably wrap up here in a second. With young people, I teach them, stop charging for time and effort ever again. Hourly wage is what everyone does. Babysitting hourly, yard work hourly, get a job at the local whatever restaurant hourly. If you want to create real wealth and value, charge for results. Had a kid, Mindy and Jordan Linscomb, their son is 12 years old. I challenged him to make $1,000 on a Saturday. And he came back to me and he was mowing lawns and weeding and all this stuff. He made $100. Amazing in a day. Super proud of him. And he's like, but I worked my butt off. He's like, sun up to sundown, I worked my butt off. And it's because he was charging hourly. And I said, what if you didn't charge hourly? What if you knocked on their door and said, I will mow your lawn and pull your weeds for $45? And now you can hustle for results rather than time and effort. And he made $1,000 the next day.
Wow.
And then he hired his buddies, and they're continuing to go to more neighborhoods. And it's just been this unbelievable journey. And you can do that in any type of business opportunity. So charge for results. That's such a powerful way to go.
Man.
Oh, love that. So awesome. So many good, just good takeaways and good nuggets. And we're so excited you're going to be a part of the conference, and just that we get to share more of you with the people that are there, and get to share this with people that weren't able to join us, but maybe even people that are seeing this post conference and stuff too. So I will just give the invite to anybody watching to join us at Lean and Level Up. The conference is in, oh my goodness, 11 days.
11 days. I can't wait.
Who's counting?
Who's counting? But who's counting? So we're super excited to have Scott there with us. I know a few people on this call are going to be there. But if you need to get tickets still, it's leaninlevelup.com, and we would love to have you there. It's going to be an incredible event. Scott, would you just wrap up and just tell people where can they get more information about Gravystack, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So if you want to get Gravystack, and you have kids in your life, it's ages 6 and up all the way through college. So, go to gravystack.com/Scott, download it and go. It's pretty simple. Get the app and go. You'll get your debit card, and the family starts rocking on the 3 E's. And, if you want to learn more about Dinner Table, just go to dinnertable.com as well. That's where we have our family money skills course. That's our masterclass to really help the parents learn the money skills for the family. And then we do workshops there as well. And then last but not least, if people care about this topic and they want to be trained by me, we're starting to certify and license. So small business owners, network marketing professionals, financial advisors, business owners, they're flocking to us, and we just train them and we certify them. They get the whole business in a box. So they get to become the family financial coach for everyone in their community. It's an easy 6-figure business in a box. Super fun. So you can just get a hold of us at dinnertable.com if you're interested in that. And then you can find me on social. I'm Scott Donnell. Pretty easy.
Love it.
Man, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Can't wait to see you,
we
man.
appreciate you, and I'm glad you made it home from Mexico. And
I think Chad had one last question. I think
Chaddy,
before we jump.
what you got, Chad?
All right, guys. So this is one thing I've thought about my whole life, and I was lucky enough to kind of get hooked up with someone early. But just the simple math, if everyone would invest $300 from age 18 to 28, they would be set. And if you didn't even touch it, I mean, that's $75 a week. You can do that when you're going to college. You can do that if you're working at Walmart. You can do that, whatever. But if you simply just would invest that for those 10 years, and if you wouldn't even touch it, by the time you hit 60, you're looking at $2 or $3 million, depending upon, the market, but conservative 8% return.
Yep.
Tony Robbins talks about this. I mean, it's such a simple thing, but it's also simple not to do if you don't know it.
Yeah. And I'll take that one step further, Chad. It's a brilliant quote or comment. Automate it.
There you
The
go.
only way this works is to automate it. And so in Gravystack, every dollar the kids make in Gravystack auto splits to investing in saving, to sharing in generosity, and to their spend jar for their debit card. If you automate it, you take away the motivation and ability needed to do it and the prompt. You don't even need it. You just, it's automatic going there. You pay yourself first, man. That's it.
And everything else adjusts around that. So if that's 100 a month, 300 a month, 500 a month, everything else adjusts. And it's like, oh, well, I don't got anything X amount, so I can't do, well, it's already spent.
That's right. That's right.
So
well said.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Chatty.
Yep. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for being here. Scott, thank you for being here and all that wisdom on this. Man, I think the quote that hit me the hardest, that really applies to a lot in life, but we don't think, is what you don't heal from, you pass on. Oh man, it's so true. And I can't wait to see you in 11 days, and we'll continue praying for you and lifting you up, my friend.
Well, let me end with this, because I love you guys. I know the audience there is going to be a lot of entrepreneur folks, family people. The entrepreneurial family, to me, is probably the most special group of people in the whole world. And I will talk about this way more on stage, but if you can learn these strategies for your team and your employees, right? We do coaching and workshop, but if they learn these mindsets, it is the fastest way to get value creation inside the company and fastest way to create strong employees, growing, thriving employees. It's the best for retention I've ever seen. And it's coming from left field. They're like, well, you're talking about children. No, I'm not. Every single thing I said on this call had to do with adults. They just can take action quicker than children. So I'll unpack that a lot more when we're in person, because if you get that tip, it is one of the most unbelievable culture builders, retention pieces. Like, every good business in the world has the best team. And that is how a company can grow and thrive, is really by focusing on the people and their family and their mindset inside their business. So I'll unpack that more, because people are like, well, we're talking about kids. I do that on the side on the weekend when I'm with them. No, you got to get this right in your business, because it's one of the fastest ways you're going to thrive in the business.
Yeah.
It's also one of the fastest ways your business can fail, is if you don't do this stuff right. If you get your priorities out of line, your business is toast.
Yep.
Wow.
That's
Anyway.
Can't wait to talk about that tomorrow.
Lean in, level up.
Let's go.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Guys. Have a good night, guys.
So much. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody,
Take
for
care.
hopping on. We'll see you guys soon. Good night.
Get it.